and welcome to another episode of Exploring Standards. As always, I am your host, Jess, and today we have a very special episode. We are wrapping up season 3 of the podcast. And as you may see, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have 2 guests with me today, which is exciting because normally I just get the privilege of one, but I do have 2 guests with me here today. First, I have Rob, and he is CEO and Director of Assent. Rob, how are you today?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, Jess. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Obviously, if you've listened to the podcast before, Rob has joined me many a time. I drag him on a lot to join me on the episodes. So thank you very much for joining me again. And today we have Information Security Sector Manager from ISOQAR, Kirsty Wakefield. Kirsty, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. And thank you again for joining us. So our topic today, we are looking at artificial intelligence, or AI, and the ISO standard 42001, which has really been growing significant in the last 12 months. But before I go any further into today's podcast, I do need to make a very quick little disclaimer and state that Assent is an independent consultancy firm, and we do not recommend any particular certification body. Right, formalities are out the way now. And I'm going to kick off with my first question I always ask my guests. So Kirsty, can you please tell our listeners a little about yourself and your role at ISOQAR?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kirsty Wakefield, as you said, I've been with ISOQAR now 4.5 years, and I've had an amazing journey. I started off as an auditor, auditing core standards, then branched out into information security, business continuity, and artificial intelligence. And then more recently, I was lucky enough to become the information security sector manager. So I'm now managing the sector with a great bunch of auditors, and we are developing the sector, and AI is one of our biggest focuses at the moment. You know, we are out there, we are promoting it, and we are delivering it, and it's a really exciting standard. It's really interesting.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations. Obviously, that sounds amazing. As you said, you know, ISO 42001, it is growing significantly, and it's a very interesting standard. So I'm very much looking forward to getting into this topic. So for those listeners who are maybe listening and may not be familiar, what is ISO 42001 and why was it created, Kirsty?
Absolutely. A question we're asked all the time. So ISO 42001 is one of the newest standards. Came out in 2023, and it is allowing organisations really to focus and manage artificial intelligence. As we know, artificial intelligence is everywhere. And with AI developing so quickly, there needed to be that clear guidance on how to use it really safely, ethically and responsibly, and making sure that we're managing how the uses are being out there. There are a lot of concerns, with the artificial intelligence, raising issues like the bias, the privacy, the accountability that comes with the AI. It's a standard that's allowing organisations to build trust, to make their AI systems used properly. So they've got that accountability, they've got those controls in place to make sure it's used safely, ethically, and, we do have those people in key positions that are managing that accountability and monitoring it. Gives them a framework that they can manage risk. Risk is everywhere, as we know. Risk in the business is everywhere, but AI, again, brings its own significant risks. So, by having that framework in place, it allows businesses to sort of move forward with the development of their AI. It's especially used for businesses working across different sectors as well, because it creates a common approach, which, as you know, the ISO standards is all about common framework. And at the end of the day, it's about helping organisations maintaining that fair, transparent and aligned with human values of using AI, really. It's about protecting people.
I think that's a fantastic summary. AI, as you said, it's everywhere, and it's just growing. And it is quite, in some respects, it's quite scary. Yeah. And I think this standard really is going to help kind of bring the consistency and to safeguard businesses and obviously their consumers. Yeah. So obviously we've got lots of other standards out there. One that I know, Rob, we work with a lot is ISO 27001 and ISO 9001. So how does 42001 differ from these other well-known standards?
Yeah, well, of course, it's a different subject, so it's artificial intelligence. But the good news is it's a management system, right, Kirsty? So it fits really nicely together with 9001, 27001, which is really good news. And I think another interesting thing about this is it possibly could have been an extension of the 27001 series, but it's not. It's 42001, and that opens it up to develop in other areas. There's already been an edition 42005, which covers the impact assessment sort of part in more detail. But in terms of certification, 42001 is what you get the certificate for. And being a management system, we can integrate it with your other standards. Obviously, we need to make sure all the correct requirements are met. But I think that probably does save a bit of time, doesn't it, Kirsty, from an audit perspective, if you've got kind of 27 plus 42?
Yeah, absolutely. The frameworks are very similar. Like you say, 42 is a standalone and it specifically focuses on AI. However, the structure, it naturally aligns and it sits really nicely. So it really does, allow businesses to develop the systems that are in place and put those additional controls and risks and mitigations around what they've already there. So they're not duplicating work, which is the whole point, really, isn't it? We don't want to create and create and create. What we want to do is make sure it's fitting the business needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. So then why do you think businesses are increasingly paying attention to AI governance and ethical use?
Okay. So businesses are really paying, attention because it's becoming a bigger part of how they operate now. It comes with more responsibility, more accountability. Like anything, there is a lot of accountability, and somebody somewhere is going to be the person that's going to be answering to, delegating to, establishing roles and responsibilities to other people in the business. And they really do need to make sure that they are not putting anybody in any situations. It can have serious impacts, depending on what you're using AI for, decision making. It can make, unfair decisions. It can, potentially have privacy concerns or even legal risks. It's one of those that if it's not used properly, it can put businesses in quite a situation, with regulators, with, employees, especially, if there's AI being used with employee data. It's about making sure that they are following the guidance, they are following what the regulations are looking at coming in, and whether things are being done correctly. Because at the end of the day, companies are, there to use these tools, use the tools to enhance, to innovate, to move forward, but they've got to make sure they're staying within the guidelines, because at the end of the day, there's humans at the bottom of this. If you get it wrong, ethically wrong, it makes an unbiased decision, whatever it is, you're putting out incorrect information, you're going to lose sort of face with your customers. You're going to lose trust with your customers, trust with your employees. So this is why people are really passionate about getting this right. Really are passionate.
Do you want anything, Rob?
I would just add the legislation is coming, and some of it's already here. So like the EU AI Act, and Kirsty, I think you said earlier in your introduction that the standard is a really good way of implementing that best practice, and ideally that would go above and beyond the legislation. So it's a good framework to help people comply with that legislation that's coming all over the world. But also, I think it's really interesting that AI is everywhere, and you probably don't even know that you're using it or that you have it as a user. It's built into Microsoft Office. It's built into Google Suite now. On the new iPhones, you have Apple Intelligence, which is all AI. So it's good that the standard addresses the use of AI, not just the development of it. I think maybe in the early days there was an idea that it might just be a standard for the tech people that are actually building this stuff. And actually that's not the case. And a lot of the clients we're dealing with are actually the users of someone else's technology. So it's applicable to everyone.
Yeah, and I guess I love what you said about it. It's humans at the end of the day, and that's something we need to consider. So what type of organisation should be paying attention to ISO 42001? I know, Rob, you just kind of lightly touched on it. It's not just for tech-heavy companies. It does kind of apply more broadly. Do you want to go into more detail?
Yeah, of course. Well, I can tell you a bit about our experience of what we've seen so far. So obviously we have dealt with tech companies that are building this stuff and making these AI models. And I think probably naturally they're the first ones to go for it. But actually, we've also seen people further down the supply chain. So an interesting area is e-learning. So we've had several sort of e-learning companies, people that either build the courses or they build the platforms, and they're starting to integrate AI aspects. Maybe it's suggesting the next course that they might take or something like that. But they've got a real interest in managing this. Of course, finance. They're always sort of ahead of on the tech side. So we're getting interest from the finance sector, healthcare as well. More and more AI being used in healthcare, and as an industry that has a big governance framework and a big ethical impact. So they're looking at it. So really, there is no sort of one type of company that could benefit from this. Everyone can and should. I guess it's driven by a couple of things. One is supply chain. So if your customers are asking you for it, then that's often where people get on board with standards. But also the legislation, I think we shouldn't underestimate, because meeting that, just like we had the Data Protection Act and GDPR, things of that nature. I think having ISO 42001 as a framework, and then having ISOQAR or someone else come in and impartially assessing what you're doing, and giving you that, not just that reassurance, but that badge that you can give to your customers. I think it has a real benefit for everyone. And if you've already got standards, you can management system, you can expand that to an integrated system. So the workload is not necessarily huge.
Kirsty, do you want to expand on any of that at all?
I think Rob's kind of hit it on the head there. Every business that we're working with at the moment, they're varying. They are going from, like Rob said, healthcare, financial, retail. People are seeing the benefits from this, and it is bringing positivity to businesses. And it's making them understand that actually it is freely there to use as long as we control it. So it's about understanding that and then looking at it through the frameworks that they've got, and just sort of putting those additional controls in, but then encouraging people to use it. And it does optimize. It is a tool that can do optimization and increasing outputs, which is amazing. And I think once 42,000 really does go quite big, very quickly, I think lots and lots more people, like Rob said, are going to do an extension to the current frameworks and bring it in. And I think, it will be the norm, as they say, like everything else, really.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. Obviously, it is. I think it's going to become just like one of the standards that we have and we talk about every day. So completely don't disagree there. So what are the main risks of unmanaged AI that ISO 42001 can help address?
Absolutely. Okay. So, we look at this on a day-to-day basis, and, unmanaged risks are things like your bias, your lack of transparency, your privacy issues, even like I keep saying, decision making. If you let your AI go off and do its thing and it makes wrong decisions, it can harm people without anybody really knowing and how it's happened, why it's happened. So if the information wasn't correct, and it's not being managed or it's not being monitored, that can cause huge risks. Hence the reason with 42,001, similarly like to 27,001, it's got controls in place and it's got some excellent guidance, is the only way I can say it, on how people can address this. They can address the risks. They can put the mitigating factors in place to make sure that, it is being managed, it's being reviewed, it's being monitored. It's that whole AI life cycle, of we don't just set it off and let it go. We've got those in there. We're monitoring it. We're looking at it. And if something doesn't seem right, they go back and review it, risk assess it, change it, implement what it is that you need it to achieve. And 42,001, really does help that, with a clear framework, clear processes there in place. It takes clients through step by step, on the considerations, of what they need to do, how they need to do it, why they need to do it, and who's accountable for it. It's, as you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate about this framework. It's one of those, it's a really interesting framework, really, really interesting framework, but it ensures, that everything is kept safe. Everything is ethically correct, everything is sitting inside the governance, the guidance, and it's basically under control. So control mitigates, mitigates and reduces risk.
Mm-hmm.
So, I will keep saying it. There are, it's people at the end of this. It's a decision. It can be a decision-making tool. It can even be something as, I want to, I don't know, chat GPT this statement. If it goes wrong, that there's a big risk, and there's also other risks with AI. Again, like I say, it's about, without managing the responsibility, the risks are your clients,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to lose trust in you. They're going to lose trust in your decision-making tools. Your employees could lose trust in you. There could be financial repercussions. And again, there could be governance repercussions. So I think with this one, everyone is really, really aware of risk,
Mm-hmm.
really aware of risk. And risk is not a bad thing. But from what we're seeing, people are taking the risk really seriously and putting some real good controls in place. And that's, again, all down to the framework and all down to the expertise that are in the businesses that we're working with.
That's fantastic. I think I love your passion. You say you're very passionate about this, and it definitely does come across.
I really like that life cycle aspect to the standard, actually. And it's one of the first things we noticed when we first got the published copy, and we were, our group of consultants were going through it and trying to work out what this thing is. That's one thing that really stuck out to us, the life cycle and also the end of life part of an AI system, because there's a lot of residual kind of stuff there, isn't there? There's data, there's models, there's even personal information. And that really has a good crossover, I think, with 27001. I think, as you mentioned, Kirsty, that had an update not so long ago, and that had a new control in it for use of cloud services, which really stressed some people out, because cloud services are really easy to sign up to, and actually not that easy to close down. And it's hard in an organization to control which cloud services you're using, because your staff can easily sign up to stuff and start putting data into those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you've got a policy that prevents that, it's not easy to technically prevent that from happening. And if you add into that some of those systems using AI, where you can have large volumes of data and you can process a lot very quickly, and you can make a small mistake go very large very quickly. I think there's a real sort of synergy there between the two, of understanding what systems your people are using, which has an information security aspect as well as that AI life cycle. And obviously, if you don't need those systems or it doesn't work out on those systems, closing that down, removing the data, working out the impact of that. So, it's an interesting standard.
Okay, so let's take a look now from a business perspective. What value does certification bring beyond compliance?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So certification goes beyond just meeting compliance. That's something I will say. It helps bring a level of structure, a level of accountability to an area that's still evolving really quickly. So especially around AI, it's allowing those businesses to allow an external certification body to come in and really have a look around their management system and really ask those questions and really sort of understand what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it. It gives that assurance across the business. And then that's passed out, like Rob quite rightly said earlier, that's passed out to the clients and the customers, because they're flying those flags of, we've got an external certification. Certification helps build trust as well. It's one of those, if you see something or you're going to look for somebody to provide services, you go and have a look and you go, oh, they've got a certification. Yeah, that's offering that reassurance to say, they have openly been sort of assessed against what that is they're doing, and they're meeting the requirements of the standard. And again, certification is something I'm really passionate about. Clearly, it's what I do day in and day out, and it's absolutely amazing to go in and see businesses, and everything they've put into it, just their understanding of continual improvement, because certification isn't just, here's compliance tick, well done. It is, no, you're doing an amazing job, but tell me more. Tell me how you're going to push this further. How are you going to improve? How are you going to continually seek those opportunities? And, it's a real sort of good idea, sort of sharing those good practices that we see across the industries. Certification is, definitely more than just a compliance check. It's us building a relationship with our clients as well, and understanding the businesses and understanding their risks and understanding, how they want to do something, why they want to do something, and where they see this going, and just sort of you kind of get the feel of the business, you understand, you watch them grow and develop. And through the 42001, currently very new, we are taking businesses through those stage 1s and stage 2. So your initial certification, sort of coming in and having a look, and then we're coming back and having that deeper dive and seeing what's changed, what's new, what's improved. And then at the end of the certification, at the end of the stage 2, they get set. As long as they meet the requirements, they get the certification, which, we've done a few so far, and it's really, really good. It's a really proud moment for both auditor and client.
Yeah, I can imagine that sort of getting over the line is like probably a really good feeling, which is fantastic. So you mentioned this, we've kind of talked about this already, like the ethical and transparency. How does ISO 42001 ensure that AI systems remain ethical, transparent, and fair?
So ISO 42001 makes sure that the use of AI is used in a responsible and a managed way, and includes keeping ethical and transparency, and making sure everything we do is fair. It gives organisations clear frameworks to follow, so they're not just focusing on what AI can do and how it can impact, but also how it can impact people. And I keep coming back to that point. For example, it encourages businesses to think about things like AI treating people fairly. People say, how does that happen? We don't want bias. We don't want anything. We want the AI to do what it's been tasked to do, what it's been trained to do, what it's understand. We can explain how it makes decisions. So again, it's not just it's off. It's a learning module. It's been taught. It's been programmed. It's done what it's doing to make those decisions, and we make sure that that is ethical, that is transparent. That everything, privacy, data protection, is all in those considerations, and keeping a proper oversight. And I keep saying this, it's not just, okay, we've programmed it, off it goes. It is making sure that the information is coming back is correct, is transparent, is fair, can be challenged if it needs to be challenged. We're not just going, this has told us that, we're going with that. That is the right answer. It is about the full monitoring system. It's making sure that we're training it to understand the right questions as well, so making sure we understand what the use is, what we want it for, and making sure, before we start, during and after, the information is correct. It is, viable. And people are out there all the time, and you can pop something into an AI system and it can give you the most obscure answer or the most accurate answer. But it's about then that oversight, that control of people coming in going, right, this is what it's been trained to do. This is what I've asked it. This is where we're going to go with it. That way, risks of bias, lack of clarity on the information are not ignored as well. So again, the oversight, the accountability, somebody in the business will be responsible for managing that AI system. And by having structure in place, people can build trust as well. AI is there. It's a positive thing. It can be used as a positive tool. Like I said earlier, it can be used to help increase optimization within businesses, but doing it correctly, doing it transparently, and making sure it is controlled. And again, I will go back to it. The standard is very, very well detailed as a framework. It really does guide you through. Obviously, the standard is what we audit against. There are lots of other varying standards that, people can go and have, and really research the AI, and understand life cycles, understand learning models, understand the languages, because not everybody is tech savvy, really.
Fabulous, thank you. I think obviously you said it's so important that you gain trust obviously with your employees and your consumers, and AI is something that is so prevalent and is happening so much, and could very easily be used or taken the wrong way, and having this framework and this standards to kind of keep you in those guidelines is amazing. So Rob, what does an AI management system audit actually involve under 42001?
Well, okay, audit-wise, there's of course two sides to this. So there's internal audits that our people here at Assent are likely to do to support a client with, and then there's the external audits that Kirsty and her team will do for certification. And actually, they're fairly similar, because what we want to do is go through the management system that the client has built, and we want to verify that they're compliant with the standard and also compliant with their own sort of policies and procedures. And we do that in auditing by looking for evidence to back that up, so objective evidence. And we try and sample, a few records, so maybe some training records or some minutes of a meeting, and just to see that it's happening and to see if it's effective. From our point of view as consultants, we're there to make sure the client passes the certificate, basically, passes the audit. So although we're on the client side, and I always say to the clients, we're on your side, but we will look for the weaknesses and we'll look for the improvements that you can make, because that puts you in a better position for the impartial third-party audit from ISOQAR, which is a stage 1, stage 2 process. And Kirsty, you could tell us a bit more about that when they get to that stage.
Absolutely, and quite rightly, as Rob's alluded, we come in once you kind of pick a certification body to come and sort of provide your certification. We'll come in and we'll do your stage 1, stage 2. So a stage 1 again is about understanding you as a business, understanding what it is that you are intending on doing with the management system, defining that scope. Because that is what we audit against is, okay, as a business, we are going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to include this, whatever it may be. So we'll come in on your stage 1, and your stage 1 is very, very much having a look at all your documentation, having a look at your records, and just sort of making sure everything is there, ready to go, and making sure you're ready as a business to go, because we may come in and say, yeah, this is great, you've done this, but the standard requires you to do this, this, and this. So we will then formulate the report, give that to the client, and then they'll have a period of time before we come back again. And then on the stage 2, like Rob said, again, we come in and pretty much follow the same suit. We'll come in, we'll look at records, we'll look at evidence, we'll look at what it is that you've been doing, how you've been doing it, how you've communicated it, how you've trained it, who you have evaluated as an interested party. We do look at your internal audits. We come in and have a look and see what your internal audits have identified, and then what you have done from those internal audits. Like Rob said, if you've got some areas of improvement, how are you pushing those forward? What are you doing? Have you got action plans, continual improvement plans? And we spend some real time with the clients, and we're not just sat with one person, we're sat with as many people in the business as we can, from the leadership team down, and we sort of sit down with them, we understand them, and we really do sort of push and make sure that everything that you're telling us is exactly what you're doing. So we'll ask different people in different departments what it is, how are you doing it, why are you doing it, where are you doing it, how are you trained on it, what's your roles and responsibilities. And auditing actually is one of the best bits, because you really do get to see so many different industries doing it so many different ways, but really positive ways. And like I say, when you get them to stage 2 and we've gone through the audit, they get their certification, and then we come back and do our annual audits each year, and then we follow that cycle and we build a great working relationship with our clients.
I love that. I love your real positive spin on kind of the audits. Obviously, it can be quite scary for your customers customers for someone to come and be like, we're going to audit your system now, but sort of your passion and the way you're so positive about it and making it to a good experience is about learning about the business and learning about the people in the business. I love that. So Rob, you've just talked about internal audits. How can companies prepare internally for an audit, and so what should they sort of have in place before they engage in the auditor from someone like ISOQAR?
Yeah, no, excellent question. So companies need to be running this management system before they start thinking about getting certified. But normally we build that time into our projects. If they work with a consultant like us at Assent, we'd have planned that out and we'll have a roadmap of what's going to get them ready. And we normally start with a gap analysis exercise, which just really looks at what they're doing already, because mostly people are doing lots of good stuff already. But maybe they just need to improve it in some way. Maybe they need to document something, or there might be slight differences to processes that we recommend. So that's why we'd normally start with a gap analysis exercise. And that's evolving a bit these days because it's not just a yes or no sort of red or green exercise now. It really sets up our project going forward for closing the gaps out and the items that the company might want to monitor to make sure that things are happening as they should be. But we'll work through all of that process from the consultancy perspective. We'll get the client ready, make sure their documentation is ready, make sure that the business is actually working to those policies and procedures and processes. And then we mentioned the internal audits earlier, and of course that's a really good way of preparing for certification. As I say, we try and identify any weaknesses or improvements, as many as we can, and then that goes into a corrective action process. So it's not the end of the world if you get a finding. Even if ISOQAR raise a finding, it's not the end of the world. It's important to understand why did that happen and how can we fix it. But you can always overcome these things. But once you've got to that stage, and I particularly recommend doing the internal audits before the stage one, although I think you could do them in between, but the sooner the better. Once you've closed out all of those items, it's probably a good time to bring in an external auditor, like ISOQAR, who will go through that process Kirsty just described, the stage one, which is the document check, and the stage two, which is more of the evidence-based sort of record collecting. And we can be there to support the customer, as we are with other standards. We can sort of sit in, listen, and see if there's any issues and help to maybe interpret auditor speak. ISOQAR auditors and other auditors are all very nice people generally and collaborative, but sometimes there can be a disconnect in sort of how a customer addresses something versus what an auditor might misunderstand because they're not there for very long. It's only a number of days to cover a lot, so we can help in that way.
Fabulous. Kirsty, is there anything that you would expect to see before a customer engages with you?
Well, I think like Rob said, when they're engaging with our sort of ISOQAR, they don't just sort of engage straight away. 9 times out of 10, they've got support, they've got consultancy, but we've got a really good back team in the office as well. So, our sales team will make sure that they've got what they need, they are supported. And we also try and encourage people to go and look on CB websites as well, because there's always handy hints and tips on there on preparing for an audit. 42,001, for example, we've got gap analysis on there. We've got, what it looks like, what's the benefits, everything else. So it's about do your research of your cert bodies and, go and see what it is and speak to the team, speak to the offices, make sure, you're comfortable that the audit's going to happen, how the audit's going to happen, because it can be done in a hybrid method, it can be a remote audit, it can be an on-site audit. We will work with how clients really want to work. And it's like I say, it's very key for us to build those relationships on a very early start, because having a good working relationship allows us to come into the business and ask those questions without anybody feeling I'm being challenged. We want that approach, because we celebrate success. And like Rob said, if you've got areas of improvement, that's okay. That's okay too. And seeing that, Assent or other consultancies supporting clients is it's a massive sort of impact for the clients, because they're there to support during the audit. Like you say, audits can be a little bit daunting, but yeah, it's about just doing the research, coming out, having a conversation with us, we will make contact with clients quite quickly, via email, try and put them at ease and try and manage their expectations of what's happening.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So we are at the final question. And we've already kind of briefly touched on this. So as you said before, that many businesses do often have other ISO certifications. So how does 42001 integrate with these existing management systems? Kirsty, do you want to take us away for that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So like ISO 42001 is designed to fit smoothly within existing management systems, like we said, within your ISO 27001 information security or your quality management system. They're very similar in structure. Every standard follows a very similar structure, but then it's very specific to what the standard is for, So it kind of sits very nicely. It uses same sort of structure going through about managing risk, about understanding, as I keep saying, accountability, roles and responsibilities, what needs to be considered as documented information, why does that need to be documented? It follows through. It also builds sort of the specifics around 42001 as well. So like 27001, we have those Annex A controls, which allow to support the mitigation of risk. 42001 has exactly the same. So it follows those SL Annex A controls. And it's about, how the management systems are already embedded into the businesses. 42001 kind of just naturally fits in, So like we've said, you're looking at things like your management reviews, your internal audits. It's all within those processes that you have there. So it's about, okay, how does 42001 differ? What do I need to look at differently? What do we need to discuss at management level differently? Is there existing legislation that we need to consider? But again, it follows the structure, it follows the frameworks. It should naturally just come in a line with the businesses, and as I always say, management systems should naturally embed themselves into the business. The businesses shouldn't be made to fit around a management system. So if it's there, it should be a nice day-to-day management, I'm placing it in there and enjoying using it, really.
Yeah, I love that. I think, as you said, management systems should work for you. You shouldn't work for your management system. Yeah, completely agree. Well, fabulous. Thank you so much, Kirsty and Rob, for joining me on today's episode. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you both on to wrap up season 3 of the podcast. So thank you once again. If you have enjoyed listening to today's episode, please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the podcast. And I won't be back another episode in a couple of weeks because it is the last one for season 3. But keep an eye out because season 4 will be coming very shortly.